Everybody assumes the Rottweiler is close to the ceiling for home protection. Big, strong, intimidating. Documented bite force north of 300 psi. I'm not going to argue with any of that. It's accurate. What I will argue is that for the specific job most people actually need done, there's a breed that beats it, and it's not the one you'd guess from the usual biggest and scariest comparison videos. It's the Belgian Malinois' quieter, older cousin, the Dutch Shepherd. Nobody talks about this dog. I think that's partly because it doesn't have a Hollywood moment the way the Malinois got with the Bin Laden raid, and partly because it just doesn't look as dramatic in a thumbnail. But the case for it is stronger than people realize once you actually compare what each breed is built to do. Start with the Rottweiler's actual strength, because I want to be fair about it before I make the case against using it as your default answer. The breed's history traces to Rottweil, Germany, where butchers use these dogs to drive cattle to market and pull loaded meat carts. Moving an unwilling 900-pound animal requires a dog that absorbs resistance without quitting, and that structural persistence is real. A 2008 study in the Journal of Anatomy measured the breed's bite force at roughly 328 psi. A 2009 paper in the Journal of Veterinary Behavior found Rottweilers holding a grip significantly longer under resistance than most other breeds tested. None of that is myth. The dog is genuinely formidable in a sustained physical confrontation. Here's the problem, and it's not really about the dog. It's about what home protection actually requires versus what people assume it requires. A 2008 Applied Animal Behavior Science survey by Duffy, Shue, and Serpel, covering 6,000 owners across 30 breeds, and one of the most cited studies in this field, found Rottweilers scoring high on both stranger-directed aggression and owner-directed aggression. That second number doesn't get discussed enough. Most protective breeds separate those two categories cleanly. Aggressive toward outsiders, calm with the household. The Rottweiler's profile doesn't split as cleanly, which means the same dog capable of handling a real threat correctly also requires more careful, consistent management around its own family than most buyers expect going in. I think that's the part nobody warns people about at the point of sale. You're not just buying capability. You're buying a management requirement that doesn't pause when the dog is just hanging around the living room. The Dutch Shepherd solves that problem in a way that genuinely surprised me when I started looking into the breed seriously. Developed in the Netherlands in the late 1800s as an all-purpose farm dog, herding, guarding, pulling carts, even ratting, the breed was never bred for a single narrow job the way the Rottweiler was for cattle work. That versatility produced something the Rottweiler doesn't have in the same proportion: situational discrimination paired with high trainability and a notably stable temperament around the household. The Dutch National Police and several European military units use Dutch Shepherds specifically because the breed combines drive with control more reliably than its flashier cousin, the Malinois. Dutch police trainers have noted for years that the breed tends to be easier to turn off after a working task than the Malinois, which matters enormously in a home setting where the dog needs to spend most of its day being a calm household animal and only occasionally needs to flip into protection mode. I know what you're thinking. A dog used by police and military sounds like exactly the kind of breed that's wrong for a regular household. Too much drive, too much maintenance, same problem as the Malinois I've warned people about in other videos. Fair pushback. Let me complicate my own argument here, because I don't think the comparison is as clean as Dutch Shepherd good, everything else bad. The Dutch Shepherd still needs real exercise, 60 to 90 minutes a day minimum, plus mental engagement, not just a walk around the block. It's not a low-maintenance dog. If you're picturing something you can leave in a backyard and forget about, this isn't it, and neither is the Rottweiler, honestly. Both breeds will get destructive and develop behavioral problems without enough structured outlet. The difference isn't maintenance level. It's what happens during the hours when the dog isn't being actively managed. A Rottweiler left understimulated tends to get stubborn, possessive, sometimes reactive toward the family members managing it. A Dutch Shepherd left understimulated gets destructive in the way working breeds generally do. Chewed furniture, restlessness, but the behavioral data on the breed consistently shows lower rates of owner-directed aggression, even when poorly managed, compared to the Rottweiler's profile in the Duffy, Shoe, and Serpal study. That's not a small distinction if you've got kids in the house, or if multiple people in the household need to handle the dog without years of training experience. There's also a discrimination advantage worth mentioning. Dutch Shepherds, like German Shepherds and Malinois, come out of a herding lineage that selected hard for reading situations accurately, rather than reacting to every stimulus the same way. A dog bred to manage livestock without constant handler direction had to learn the difference between a real disturbance and nothing. That instinct transfers directly to telling the difference between a familiar person moving around the house at an odd hour and an actual unfamiliar threat, which, when you think about what home protection actually means at 3 a.m., is most of the job. I'll be honest about price, because I think people get blindsided by this. A Dutch Shepherd puppy from a working line breeder runs $1,500 to $3,000, similar to a working line Rottweiler. A trained protection-level Dutch Shepherd from a serious kennel can run $8,000 to $15,000, which is comparable to or slightly less than equivalent trained Malinois or German Shepherds. It's just a less hyped one, which oddly enough keeps the price more reasonable than the breeds everyone's heard of. The breed's health profile is also genuinely solid compared to most large working breeds. Hip dysplasia rates sit lower than the German Shepherd's, roughly 19%, based on data tracked by Dutch breed clubs, and the gene pool hasn't gone through the same kind of show ring fragmentation that split German Shepherds and Dobermans into wildly different working and cosmetic populations. There's no real show-line Dutch Shepherd problem the way there is with those other breeds, mostly because the breed never became fashionable enough to attract that kind of breeding pressure. Dutch Shepherd doesn't have the same ring as Belgian Malinois or the cultural weight of German Shepherd. Maybe it's just that nobody made a documentary about one rappelling out of a helicopter. Whatever the reason, the gap between how capable this breed actually is and how little most American dog owners have heard of it is genuinely strange to me. The Rottweiler will still be the right answer for some households, particularly ones that want a dog that's calm by default and don't mind the extra care its profile requires around family members. But if the actual question is which dog handles the full job better, reading a real threat correctly, managing its own drive without supervision, and not turning that same intensity on the people living with it, the answer most people have never heard of is probably the better one.